They say the person you'd take a bullet for is usually the one holding the gun. I used to think that was just an edgy quote. Now, I know it's a documentary. If you asked me 3 years ago, I would have told you I had the perfect life. My name's David, I'm 34, and I was married to Sarah for 8 years. We met in college. She was smart, vibrant, and had this laugh that could pull me out of any bad mood. We survived our broke 20s together, eating ramen, splitting rent in a tiny apartment, and building our careers from the ground up. By the time we hit our early 30s, we had made it. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, had 2 dogs, and were finally talking about starting a family. I trusted her implicitly. I never checked her phone. I never questioned where she was. Why would I? She was my teammate, my best friend. But that's the thing about absolute trust. It makes you completely blind to the knife until it's already twisted in your back. The changes didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a movie where she suddenly came home smelling like cheap cologne. It was a slow drip of poison. It started around the time she got promoted to a senior director role at her marketing firm. Suddenly, her phone was always face down. When she texted, she tilted the screen away from me. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly swipe to her home screen. Then came the late nights at the office. At first, it was once a week, then 3 times. I brought it up once, casually. I said, "Hey, you've been working crazy hours. Everything okay?" She snapped at me. I mean, truly exploded. She accused me of not supporting her career, of being controlling, of being insecure. It was classic gaslighting, but at the time, I didn't see it. I apologized. I actually bought her flowers the next day to apologize for being unsupportive. God, I feel sick just thinking about how naive I was. Then there was Mark. Mark was the new VP at her firm. She started mentioning him constantly. Mark said this. Mark thought my presentation was brilliant. Mark was married with 2 little girls. I even met him at a company Christmas party. We shook hands. He looked me in the eye, drank my beer, and smiled. The truth didn't come out in a screaming match. It came out because of a forgotten Apple Watch. Sarah told me she was going on a weekend spa retreat with her sister and a mutual friend. I helped her pack. I kissed her goodbye. Sunday morning, I was cleaning the house, doing laundry, just being a good husband. I went into her home office to dust, and I heard a buzzing sound. She had left her Apple Watch charging in the drawer. It was buzzing endlessly. I opened the drawer, intending to just turn it off so it wouldn't drain the battery. As I touched the screen, a message popped up. It wasn't from her sister. It was from Mark. It read, "Last night was incredible. I can still taste you. Hurry back to bed." My entire world stopped. You know that ringing sound in your ears when a flashbang goes off in a video game? That's what I felt in my brain. The air left the room. My hands were shaking so violently I dropped the watch. I picked it up, I scrolled up, and there it was. Months of it. Disgusting, graphic messages. Pictures I can never unsee. Plans they made while I was sitting in the living room just down the hall. They weren't at a spa. They were at a boutique hotel 3 hours away. She had been sleeping with him for 6 months. I went to the bathroom and threw up until my stomach was empty. I sat on the cold tile floor for 2 hours. I cried until I couldn't breathe. And then, the sadness stopped, and something else took over. Absolute, ice-cold clarity.
Most guys would have called her right then, screamed, demanded answers. But if I confronted her, she would lie, delete the evidence, and spin the narrative to make me the bad guy. I wasn't gonna give her that chance. I didn't want to fight. I wanted an execution. I put the watch exactly back where I found it. Over the next 3 weeks, I played the role of the loving husband perfectly. It was the hardest acting job of my life. I kissed the lips that had just kissed him. I asked about her day. I smiled. And every night while she slept, I went to work. I bought a hidden voice recorder for her car, perfectly legal in my single-party consent state. I documented every single transaction on our joint accounts. I took screenshots of every message, every location pin, every hotel receipt she thought she had hidden. I compiled a 200-page dossier of their affair. Then, I interviewed 3 of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in the city. I hired a guy named Sterling. He looked at my binder, smiled, and said, "Son, we are going to legally and financially bury her." Under Sterling's guidance, I quietly opened a new solo bank account. Over a month, I slowly siphoned exactly 50% of our joint savings, my legal half, into the new account. I took my grandmother's antique jewelry, which she loved wearing, and put it in a safe deposit box. I moved all the sentimental items that mattered to me out of the house and into a storage unit. I was a ghost, and she had no idea. But divorcing her wasn't enough. Not after what I read, not after the way they laughed about me in their texts. I needed to burn the bridge while they were still standing on it. Mark, the VP, was a family man. His wife, Emily, was a stay-at-home mom. She frequently posted about her perfect husband on Facebook. My heart broke for her, but she needed to know the truth. I also knew that Sarah and Mark worked for a very conservative corporate firm. They had a strict HR policy regarding fraternization between executives and subordinates, especially when it involved company expenses. And Mark had used his corporate card to book a few of their little lunches and hotel rooms. The stage was set. Our 10-year anniversary of being a couple was coming up. Sarah, ever the hypocrite, wanted to make a big deal out of it. She suggested we invite both of our parents to a very expensive high-end steakhouse to celebrate. I told her I thought that was a beautiful idea. I told her I had a very special surprise planned for the evening. I wasn't lying. The morning of the dinner, I went to the post office. I mailed a thick manila envelope via same-day courier to Mark's house, addressed strictly to his wife, Emily. Inside was a flash drive containing the screenshots, audio files, hotel receipts, and a letter explaining exactly who I was and what her husband had been doing. I timed it so she would receive it around 6 p.m., right when Mark would be settling in for dinner with his family. I sent an identical digital package via an anonymous email to the head of HR and the CEO of Sarah and Mark's company, scheduled to send at 8 a.m. the next morning. At 7 p.m., we arrived at the restaurant. I wore my best suit. Sarah wore a stunning red dress. Both sets of parents were there, smiling, taking pictures. Her dad ordered champagne. We toasted to a decade of love. I raised my glass, looked her dead in the eyes, and smiled. Halfway through the main course, I stood up and tapped my glass with a spoon. The table went quiet. I said, "I want to thank you all for coming. 10 years is a long time. It's enough time to truly know someone, and it's enough time to
to find out you never knew them at all. Sarah looked at me, a confused little smile on her face. "David, what are you doing?" she whispered. I reached into my briefcase under the table and pulled out 5 beautifully bound, spiral-printed booklets. I handed one to my dad, one to my mom, one to her dad, and one to her mom. I kept the last one. "I got you all a gift," I said, "a memory book." Her mother opened hers first. I watched her eyes scan the first page. It was a blown-up screenshot of a text Sarah sent Mark, talking about how bored she was of our marriage. Her mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Then her father opened his. Page 3 was a photo they took together in bed. Her father went completely pale. Sarah grabbed the booklet from her mom. Her eyes widened. The blood drained from her face so fast she looked like a corpse. She looked up at me, absolutely terrified. The mask had completely shattered. "David," her voice was shaking. "David, please, let's go outside." I looked down at her. "No, we're done talking privately." You see, Mark's wife, Emily, received her copy of this book about an hour ago. I imagine Mark is having a very rough night right now. Sarah started hyperventilating. She started crying, reaching for my hand. "Please, it was a mistake. It meant nothing." "A 6-month mistake," I said, my voice entirely flat. "I've already moved my half of the money. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You will be served with divorce papers on Monday morning at your office, though you might not have an office much longer." I put a $100 bill on the table for my stake, turned to her parents, and said, "I am so sorry. You raised a better daughter than the woman sitting here today." And then I walked out. I didn't look back. I got in my car, drove into the night, and for the first time in months, I could finally breathe.
The fallout was biblical. Mark went home to find his bags packed and the locks changed. Emily didn't just kick him out. She hired a shark of a lawyer of her own and completely destroyed him in family court. He lost his house, primary custody of his kids, and a massive chunk of his pension. As for their jobs, the anonymous email I sent to HR hit like a meteor. Because Mark had used company funds for some of their hotel stays, it wasn't just fraternization, it was technically embezzlement. Mark was fired for cause immediately. Sarah wasn't fired, but she was demoted, stripped of her bonuses, and made a pariah in the office. She ended up quitting 3 months later because she couldn't handle the whispers. The divorce was quick. Because I had gathered all the evidence and legally secured my assets beforehand, she had zero leverage. Her own parents were so disgusted by her actions that they refused to pay for a drawn-out legal battle. She tried to beg, she tried to threaten, she tried to play the victim, but in the end, she signed everything my lawyer put in front of her. I kept the house, my retirement, and my dignity. She got an apartment and a ruined reputation.
It's been almost 3 years since that night at the steakhouse. I sold that big suburban house. Too many ghosts. I moved closer to the city, got heavily into weightlifting, focused on my business, and started traveling. I'm dating an incredible woman now who knows my whole story and respects the hell out of how I handled it. I'm sharing this for anyone out there who feels that knot in their stomach. If your partner's behavior suddenly changes, if they start guarding their phone with their life, if they try to convince you that your totally normal questions make you crazy or controlling, trust your gut. Your intuition is picking up on micro-expressions in changes in routine that your conscious brain hasn't processed yet. Don't scream. Don't confront them with proof. Smile, play the game, gather your evidence, protect your assets, and strike when they least expect it. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes the best revenge is completely deleting them from your life while legally watching their world burn. If you made it this far, drop a like on the video and let me know down in the comments how you would have handled this. Subscribe for more stories, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay strong, Kings.